Okay, here is problem number 17. A sports club has 120 members. Of whom 44 play tennis. Now, out of that 44, they might have other things that they do. We don't know. They might like to cook, well, whatever they like to do. 30 play squash, which is another game with a racket. And 18, and some of those squash players might play tennis or they might not. Some of the 30 play tennis, some might not. Out of the 44, some might play squash, some might not. And that's the intersection. So that's this next sentence, or next little phrase. And 18 play both tennis and squash. If a member is chosen at random, find the probability that this person A does not play tennis. So the probability of not tennis, which is also the same thing as the complement, T complement or something, but that doesn't look very good. I just like writing not tennis, is going to equal 1 minus the probability that they play tennis. So what's the probability they play tennis? There's 44 who play tennis out of 120 members. I'd say the hardest part is the fraction. So some people choose to use a calculator. That seems to be the problem is I'm going to do in my head, and so maybe I'll make a mistake. 76 out of 120. And then you have the possibility of trying to reduce the fraction. So that's where I'll make a mistake, maybe. I believe that's 19 over 30, but you can use a calculator, and you can also get a percent out of that. B, what's the probability not squash? Well, that's 1 minus the probability that they do play squash. So that's going to be 1 minus, okay, there's 30 members who play squash out of a total of 120. So then I get a common denominator 120. So that's going to give me 90 over 120. That reduces, if I divide the numerator and denominator by 30, that's going to be 3/4. So 3/4 of the players don't play squash. And then C is play neither squash nor tennis. Okay, the thing is, that's tricky, but this is the probability, 1 minus probability of squash or tennis. All right, so that's a little bit hard to understand unless I draw a picture. Even then, it's not so great. So I have tennis, and then I have, no, that's not even right. Okay, hold on. I have tennis, and then I have squash. All right? tennis and squash. We're saying who's all the people that don't play tennis and they don't play squash. We're looking at that. So we're doing 1 minus the probability of tennis or squash. So this is going to be 1 minus. Now what's the probability of tennis or squash? That's probability of tennis plus the probability of squash minus the probability of tennis and squash. That's the sum rule. So that's going to be 1 minus, what's the probability of tennis? We decided that's 44 out of 120. The probability of squash, how many people play squash? That's 30 out of 120. And then how many play both? That makes 18 out of 120. And then what I need to do is I need to get a common denominator. So, and the thing is also this is a little tricky. You could add this up and then simplify, but what I'm doing is I'm going to distribute the negative. I'm taking the negative here, negative here. Negative and negative makes a positive. Use a calculator if you want. Okay. So, I believe that makes 28 out of 120. So, but that's not so great. Okay, let me try it again. 44 plus 33 makes 73. No, 44 plus 30 is 74. Minus 74 minus 18, 56. 1 minus 56, or 120 minus 56 is sorry, I don't think this is right, but okay, this is 120 minus 74 plus 18. So this is going to be 138 minus 74 over 120. So I believe that's 64 over 120. That's that right there. Okay, that's all.